Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Today is the Day Changemakers. This is the opportunity where I get to meet the most amazing people and share their amazing information with all of you. I'm here with Andrea Plaza, who is someone that I adore, and I'm so glad to be able to share her story and all of her expertise and inspiration with you today through this program. Andrea Plaza is the founder as well as the chief storyteller for Andrea Plaza LLC. And hi, Andrea. So happy to have you on today.
Jody, thanks for having me.
So Andrea and I met when I applied for a job at it was then called the Community YMCA and has since morphed into a much bigger, and I'll let Andrea share that with you too, into a much different organization. But Andrea, I came in for an interview and Andrea became my boss for a little while and it was wonderful. What was your title back then, Andrea?
I was Senior Vice President of Development and Marketing.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what it was. I had to think about that for a minute too. It feels like yesterday sometimes and a lifetime ago all at the same time, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then right after that, there was a change, and I ended up becoming the interim CEO while you were still, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's.
I know. But, our story is very interesting. And that's why I'm really excited to share it today. Because, you never know. Where you start is not always where you finish. And what happens in between can be truly amazing if you pay attention to the journey. So just want to share real quick that when I went into your office for my first day, because we interviewed over the phone, I believe, and then I came in once to sign the paperwork, but I think I was even hired. We did a Zoom or a Skype or something because it was a very fast mode at that point, I believe. And I came in to sign off on the paperwork. And when I walked into your office, you had this amazing sign. And at the very bottom, it said, "Today is the day." And I had started a consulting business a few years before that. And the name obviously included in this name, Today is the Day Changemakers, was Today is the Day. And I was juggling in my mind between working for someone again or staying in the consulting world. And it was a struggle, an internal struggle for me because I was coming from a place of fear, being afraid to continue to try to grow something on my own and not being able to fund a family and support a family, because consulting is that way. And we're going to talk about that. And then when I saw that sign, I was like, what is the universe trying to tell me? Do I belong to work here? Or am I supposed to go follow Today is the Day? Not realizing that here we are in this evolution of this time is that we're sitting here together on this podcast. And I just needed to be where I was for a little while. And that was, I think, the sign of saying, stay here for a bit and then move on. I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, I still have the sign. And yeah, and I have it in my office and I look at it every day because it has all these nuggets of wonderful messages. And the first one is live your dream. And, I think that's something that both you and I share, that we've been working on living our dream. But a few of the other sweet little nuggets there are enjoy the little things, believe in miracles, dream big. And one of my favorites, which is something that I've really been working on and that I know we're going to be talking about today, and that's be your best self.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have that. I look at it every day. And when you left, you gave me some gifts. And one of them was this pad, Today's Day, which is missing a lot of pages because I use it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a wonderful reminder, right? To make the most of every day and all the opportunities that we have, the people we meet.
Yeah. The thing about Today is the Day for a lot of people, including myself, even with starting this podcast, is a lot of times fear can come to play in doing things that we want. So leaving the Y was scary for me because I was going on to another role. I still wasn't consulting yet. I was just going on to another role. But not long after I left, you left and had a vision and a dream. And I'd love to share for those who feel stuck and are unsure, like what that fear means. Because fear, and I know you're going to share this too, fear can be a motivator or a paralyzer. So talk a little bit about that part of your transition with your career.
Sure. Well, I went through all those same kind of emotions. I had also considered, I needed a change. I'd been with the Y for 11 years, and I was kind of ready for a change. And we'd just been through a pretty significant restructuring. And when you came on board, I was in the process of rebuilding and building a new team. And I think we accomplished a lot in a short period of time. And in the back of my head was, I wanted to make a change. I started to think about potentially consulting, but it didn't. The time wasn't right. And then there was a change. The CEO left, and I became the interim CEO. And frankly, I was really, after making a huge transition at work, I was really depleted. I was really exhausted. And, we all go through periods like that where you're on a project, but there's an end to it. But it wasn't really changing. And I realized that it wasn't so much the work, it was what was inside of me. And that maybe I was the one who really needed to change inside and to find the joy that I was really missing, because it got to the point where I wasn't really excited about going to work anymore. And that's just not me. I love work. I love working. I love creating. I love being around people. So I felt a little bit of fear too, about going forward in that direction. And then just I was desperate to make a change for myself, for my own health. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to outline what I need to do if I wanted to actually try consulting. And maybe it would just be a transition, but at least I don't want to be stuck with this. I wish I would have. Let me just go forward. So I did. I established an LLC, online over a weekend. I opened a business account. I set everything up. And then, it sat there for a while. And I started to put the pieces together of, all right, what would this look like? What would, who would I try to engage in a contract? What would I be offering? And I decided I'm going to just talk to my network. I'm going to talk to my mentors. I'm going to talk to my friends. I'm going to talk to trusted colleagues, and I'm going to ask them, for some guidance and business guidance, some inspiration, some practical advice. And I got such great feedback, and everybody said, do it, go for it. And so I did. And, we'd hired a new CEO, Lori Goganser, who
she's awesome.
You got to work with her for one day. She is absolutely incredible. And we just bonded immediately. We connected immediately. And I thought she was absolutely incredible. And I wanted to be able to continue to work with her, but I really did not want to stay in that position, or, I wanted to really be on my own. So, I talked to Lori, and I told her what I was thinking, and she said, "Well, think about it a little bit longer, and and let me know if that's really what you want to do." And I didn't really have, at that point, I didn't really have to think about it. And I came back to her and I said, I'm ready to move on, but I want to support you. Maybe we can consider a contract, a consulting engagement, where I can continue to support you, and I can continue to support the organization, and at the same time I can, start my business. And so that's what I did, and I created an exit strategy, and I extended the amount of time that I actually stayed on board, and just went forward with it, and it worked out really well. I mean, it's kind of strange how all the pieces really fell into place. And I literally left work on a Friday. It was the day of the gala. That was my last day, which you helped to plan. And it was, to that point, it was the most successful gala. It was a lot of fun. And then I started work on the following Monday, which is November 20th. It's what I consider my anniversary, even though I had filed my LLC 5 months before. It was really, that's the day that I consider my first day. And also happens to be my father's birthday. So I'll never forget. So November 20th, and I hit the ground running. I had within the first 5 weeks, I had 3 contracts, and I was really busy, like super busy, much busier than I ever expected. I thought it would be months before I would be up and running. I really did not expect that to happen, and everything just started to click. And I ended up needing support and being able to hire a couple subcontractors, one of whom is one of my mentees, and it just all fell into place, and I felt so untethered, and a really strong sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in a long time, and just super creative. Like the joy that I was missing, just came back like tenfold. And I was just so happy with my move. And I'm to this day, I'm so grateful for making that change and for being bold enough but feeling very supported.
That's great. I do have a question here for you too, but there's so much we can unpack because there's so many people I think that are out there that they've been somewhere maybe 10, 15 years, and the fear of that change because it's steady, but yet it's not filling their cup, right? It's like what you were saying, waking up every day feeling like, do I really want to go there? I mean, I know you were working 22 out of 24 hours. Yeah.
Ridiculous. I wasn't sleeping. I was not healthy. I was a very unhealthy person.
And think about right now, we're in this COVID crisis right now, right? That has, people working more and more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important to set healthy boundaries. And I never did that. And part of it was the nature of my work. I was a newspaper reporter, a journalist for 10 years. That was the first part of my career. I mean, you're always on deadline and, always on call. And then I shifted into corporate communications. And it was the same thing. I was in a company spokesperson. I worked for New Jersey Natural Gas Company, and you know the company very well. And it was a wonderful, wonderful place to work. I absolutely loved it. But I was on call, and I would get calls in the middle of the night often. Oh, we have an incident. Blah blah blah. 3 o'clock in the morning, and whoever's on the other end has been awake, and and I'm half asleep. So it's just like always on call, and I was used to that. I mean, even at the Y, when you're managing marketing and communications, your team or you are updating the website, sending out those email messages if there's something urgent. So I was very accustomed to being on call. It was never an issue for me. I actually oversaw operations at the Red Bank YMCA for about 3 years. I mean, there was always something operationally happening and people calling all hours of the day and night. So I was so used to that. It never really bothered me until I started my own business, and I thought, you know what? I don't have to answer emails at 11 o'clock at night anymore unless I want to. But I set boundaries. I had a client actually who started to text me at 4 o'clock in the morning and send emails and I thought, you know what? She's awake at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I've been guilty of doing that before until I realized, I can schedule these emails to
Yes.
somebody's mailbox at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
But I didn't answer them. And I set parameters so that to set the right expectation so that unless my contract calls for me to,
Be on
call, but I don't want to do that anymore. It's just not worth it to me. So I think those boundaries are important. And I know that's really hard for so many people right now whose, dinner table has become the school place for learning right. And I know that's really, really challenging, but even more important to create time for yourself and to, if you want to be your best self, you need to devote time for your own health and well-being. You're no good for anybody if you're not recharging your batteries and really focusing on your own self-care.
Just before we move on to another topic that I really want to talk to you about, I wanted to ask you, talk about how did you internalize that flipping of the switch, right? Because you say you had an exit strategy of how you were going to leave that profession. And not necessarily leave it. It was just, kind of morph into doing something on your own.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Internally, there has to be a strength to actually execute with the plan, right? Because you said you had 5 months before put together. And for me, I had talked about doing a podcast 5 years ago. So finally 5 years later doing it. So, for those who are listening, it's, and might be in this place of, I want to, but I'm scared and I don't know how. It'd be great. Just what was your process, briefly, about how you were able to have that gumption to just go forward and make it happen?
Well, I started to verbalize it first.
Yes.
When you start to talk to people and, you hear yourself talking and you're getting feedback, it made it more real for me. But I'm a real planner, and you know that about me. I'm a super planner. So I really sketched things out, and I thought, okay, so if it takes me a few months, financially, what would the impact be? And so I knew that I had some savings that if I had to fall back on, not a lot, but to fall back on, and I never even had to touch it. So I think for me, the real motivation was that I just didn't feel well. I physically didn't feel well. And I knew it was really important for me to make that change. I didn't want to end up, having a stroke or something.
No, yeah, of course. Pay
Because
attention to the body.
I had bad habits. I really did. I didn't sleep. I maybe slept 4 hours a night, maybe. And I was always up at 4 or 4:30 in the morning, checking email. Like, it was ridiculous. And like I said, I didn't set healthy boundaries, and now I do have healthy boundaries, and I feel like I have so much energy, like it's back. I was always that person who had nonstop energy, and when it started to go, I had never had burnout before, and it's a real thing, and it's just not good for you.
No, I had burnout, 80-hour weeks at a nonprofit, loved my job, but
Yeah.
I felt like it took a year to recover after I left that position.
Yeah, and that's really what happened to me. I went through a recovery period of, wow, this is what sleep is like, and I had to learn how to sleep. And I still work on it, but I do have rituals now. How I start the day, so that it really is focused on setting the day up, and really thinking, in a very grateful way about what I have, and how fortunate I am. And I really, that really sets the tone for me every morning, is praying, meditating, walking. I walk 3 to 5 miles every morning, and I'm more creative. It's just really changed my life.
That's amazing.
So,
and exercise is important.
yeah.
That's I'm so glad to hear this. And I got to tell you, I saw such a change in you after I left. And then when I didn't see you for a bit, and then I found out you left, and it wasn't about the why, it was about, it's what's in your heart,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it really is. The change, any change, it begins inside of you, and you have to be open to it. And it's not always easy, and I do understand how people get stuck. It's I was stuck for a while. It's like, oh gosh, I went through a period where my husband was physically not well, and it was a lot of responsibility that I felt, until he was better. And he had a 1.5-year recovery. And so I have felt that pressure, and it's very scary. But as I said, I felt a lot of support, and I had faith. I really did. I had faith that, God had a plan for me. And so I moved forward.
And talking about before, you said you went to those people, your network, you called them
Yeah.
your network. You and I know we both feel very strongly about mentorship.
Yes.
And for me, about 4 years ago, I was at a Y event, and I went up to the speaker and asked him if he would be my mentor, because, and literally, I think it was, I was in my 40s, of course, and I didn't care. I had no shame about it, because I'm like, we never actually verbalize those words. Sometimes we just listen and learn from people, but we don't necessarily tell them that they're our mentor. You've mentored me. You know, you may not have realized that, or, you know, we've never maybe had that conversation, but everybody we meet is either our teacher or our student, and it depends on the conversation. Each conversation evolves. Sometimes teacher, sometimes student. So talk to me. I know you are a phenomenal mentor and you have phenomenal mentees.
Thank you. You know what? I come from a family of 6. I was number 4. And when I was in grade school, my teachers, I had teachers who were my first mentors, and in high school and in college. And I was always so grateful for the time that they gave me. And I always thought, I'm going to do that for somebody someday. I'm going to be the person I want to be the light for somebody else, because there were so many people who were my light and helped, mentors help you to reach your potential, to help you see in you what they see in you, what you don't see in yourself. And right. And I think there's something about accountability with a mentor. When you know that somebody is guiding you and who believes in you, you never want to let them down. So I think mentors are really important for kids, especially at-risk kids.
Yes.
So I was first introduced formally to mentoring through Big Brothers Big Sisters. They have a corporate program, and when I worked at New Jersey Natural Gas Company, they had a program called Project Venture Mentoring, and we were paired with students from Asbury Park Middle School, and they came once a week, I think it was once a week during the school year, and met with individually one-on-one. We met in a group and then one-on-one, and they'd come and hang with you at your desk, and we talk about writing, we talk about what was happening at school, and I just really, really loved it. And I connected. One of my mentors is Waldo Senvalis, and Waldo was in 7th grade, and we've stayed connected to this day. And he's now 34, and he is a travel professional. He lives in Australia, and he says all the time his life would have been very different were it not for that program. And it wasn't just me. I mean, it was he really connected to the CEO, Larry Downs, and he and Larry are still connected. And so Waldo learned really early on in life that the people who you meet, to stay connected to those people who really have taken an interest in you. And I am just so proud of him. So that was my first real introduction to formal mentoring. I've always had informal mentors. And then, I did that for 7 years with that program. And then I started, when I worked at the Y, I started an internship program, but it had more of a mentoring piece, because to me, mentoring is a give and take relationship. And I always felt like I got just as much from the relationships that I had with young people as they had the experience of, hands-on learning the ins and outs of marketing and communications, because those were the areas that I focused on. But I created some formal programs, and I stayed connected with a lot of those young people too. I guess I've probably formally mentored about 20 young people. Incredible. And I am probably an informal mentor to many people. And yes. It's really more about kind of sharing and just being somebody who can be a resource and help somebody out. And I think it's more informal for me now, but the people in my life that I rely on, they enrich my life so much, and and I hope that I can do that for other people.
Absolutely. And like I said, I am a big advocate for any age, no matter what. I think it's phenomenal for kids, without doubt. But I think that a lot of adults forget that they're, when you hear somebody, and I think it's because sometimes there's this competitive piece as being an adult too, that, which is unfortunate, but I have no problem ever saying, and one of the things I want to get out through this conversation is, doesn't matter how old you are, if you look up to someone or you feel they're doing an amazing job, it's very rare that if you go up to someone and say, listen, I love what you're doing and I'd love to learn more about it because this is something that I'm interested in. There is no reason why somebody wouldn't share with you. I have never met anybody who's really said, I don't want to share with you. I'm sure there might be people out there, but mentorship, I would not, be where I am without the mentors. And I know that you said you use your, the same word, network, and then mentoring others. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I want to bring up something, when I started this conversation, we talked about your title, which is Chief Storyteller. One of your titles.
I change it around.
Well, but one of the things, coming from the nonprofit world and living and understanding that, or, that sector fully, because you've played so many different roles, so many different hats. And when you work in nonprofit, your title is not exactly all that you do. So now during this time, when you talk about being a chief storyteller and you talk about the nonprofits, we're in the middle of a very challenging and difficult time. Tell us a little bit about some advice that you would give some of those nonprofits that that are your clients, as well as might become your clients. What do you think they need to do right now?
Well, I think that right now, they've probably never had a greater time to really make a strong case for support. The nonprofit community is really struggling right now, and people need the services of nonprofits. And I think that being able to share your story, how you've been impacted as an organization or a business by the pandemic, what you've done to adapt, and why you need support to do X, Y, and Z to be able to continue to support your constituents, your clients. I think that sharing the story is just really is critical right now for support. But I also think that it's really important to communicate regularly with your stakeholders, businesses, nonprofits, to communicate on a regular basis and to really define and know who your stakeholders are. I think right now, internal stakeholders, your board of directors, and your employees are really critical, and so important to stay connected with them. We talked before about how hard it is with working virtually and not having day-to-day contact with people except through a screen. It's nice to see how some organizations are overcoming that, or trying to find ways to connect to employees. My husband actually works for a nonprofit, and twice they've sent these wonderful care packages with healthy snacks and a little note of thanks, which is really wonderful. But I do think it's important to stay connected to your team, support them, be flexible. But as far as a case for support, it's right now end of year. Everybody's sending out end of year appeals, and the really well done stories are very much around how they've been impacted, how they can continue to support families, children, whatever the service is, with your donation. So I think that sharing the story of social good, how your organization is making a difference, how you're changing people's lives, what would happen if you weren't there.
Yeah, I think that, it adds an interesting spin, because we talk about what we're doing, because you want to showcase that, but what would happen if you weren't there is very impactful. And those faces.
It's nice to see, it's nice to see, how organizations are shifting, and, you have no choice right now, but how creative a lot of organizations have been. One of my clients is Girl Scouts of the Jersey Shore, and they were one of the first organizations in the county that offered, actually went live with an in-person event, and they did it really, really well. And it was a fundraiser outdoors, and there were so many details and things that had to be worked out to make it happen. But it was so lovely, and I think so much of the community was really excited about finally being able to go out and have a nice event and be safe and mask up. Everybody was social distance, and it took on a whole new. It was a new format, but it was really, really successful, and they've continued to do some other things like that.
Right.
The YMCA of Greater Monmouth County is another client, and they too have really shifted, and so my role is like, okay, how do we gain, how do we tell that story? And for me, it's very much about getting media interviews and sending out press releases and connecting with media and sharing their story through that COVID lens. How is it different, and what are they doing that's so different because of the pandemic. So so that's been really nice to see how organizations can shift and meet the needs of their constituents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I know you and I can talk forever because there's so much good information and so much I want to uncover. So I know that I'm definitely going to have you back on for follow up, but I wanted to talk before we go. I wanted to talk about something that I ask everyone that I have on, and it's, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Well, I think if I were to chat with my younger self, the first thing would be, take care of yourself. And it's not being selfish to take care of yourself. You need to exercise self-care. And I think doing so helps you be just a more well-rounded person. I think you can tackle things in life when you're rested, and I just think it's really important. They tell you when you get on the plane to there's a problem, the oxygen mask falls, to put it on yourself first before you help your child or somebody else. And I think that's really true, and it's really important to take care of yourself. And then the second thing would be, it's okay to fail. And I think our failures lead us to our greatest successes. And so take risks, be calculated, but take risks. And, every misstep, every mistake, they're all wonderful lessons to help us build resilience and to really help us be our best self.
Absolutely. And it's funny because we all worry about failure and judgment, right? Those are things. Yeah.
Hold you back.
Yes, we were going to say the same as I think it does. That's the paralysis, and it's
right.
I wouldn't be sitting here with you. You wouldn't be sitting here with me. And if we didn't both decide somewhere, and honestly, I can't tell you exactly how I did it. And I know we both say, it's just you verbalize it. Because when you said we verbalize it, I was right there with you. I started to verbalize it. And that's exactly, I want to do a podcast trying to get people's reactions. Or you're talking about, I want to move out and be a consultant and getting people's reactions. And then it just kind of grows and almost becomes a life of its own, doesn't it?
Yeah, it totally does. It totally does. But, I don't think that we're taught to fail. I think it's just the opposite. And I think there's a whole new thinking about that, and that, teaching kids to accept failure and to move on is a really important lesson. But I really feel like I've learned so much more from mistakes than I have from my successes or, being perfect. There's so much more to learn from our mistakes, from rejection, from all those things that feel, negative and make you feel bad about yourself. But really, they are life lessons.
They truly, truly are. And that's the key, is we have to pay attention. We, about the signs, as we talked about, going back to the sign on the wall when I first walked in to meet you, kind of going full circle. You have to pay attention to those signs. And if something keeps coming back, there's a reason. If you push it out and the more it comes back, somewhere, whatever you believe, it's somewhere higher power trying to tell you you need to pay attention.
Pay attention and you know, listen to your gut, right? Like, I think your gut's always right.
Yeah, it's so true. So just so everybody knows, website, how can people find you and the services you supply?
The best way to find me is drop an email to hello@andreaplazallc.com. You can follow me on social media, and I'm Andrea Plaza LLC on LinkedIn and on Instagram. On Facebook, I am 18PR.
Love it.
And on Twitter, I'm A-Team Soars. And I have to look because I always mix them up. So yeah, A-Team Soars. And I'm pretty active on social media. One of the things that we do, we manage about 17 social media accounts and handle quite a few accounts with public relations, and so super busy. Love what we're doing, and I actually just recently engaged another mentee who's working with me now. So that's always really nice, right? To be able to work with somebody and have the opportunity to give them some work and help them grow.
Now, true definition of a change maker, right? Because you're giving them that opportunity and changing their life. So there's nothing more beautiful than being able to impact somebody's life positively. And I just have to say, I love your branding. I love the wing. I love the sky. I love it all.
Yeah, it's all about soaring, right? Lifting. That's one of my themes is we lift ourselves by lifting others, and I really believe that. And I think my work, definitely, that's what we do ultimately is help our clients. Whether it's a personal brand that a CEO is working on, or lifting an organization's brand and elevating them, and just helping people to better understand what they do and tell their story and maybe shape it a little differently than how they're already sharing their story.
Thank you for sharing your story with me today. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad we've stayed connected, and that we share a wonderful story about today's the day.
We do. I love that. And so what I always close with is today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So again, thank you, Andrea. She is the founder and chief storyteller of Andrea Plaza LLC. And I know we'll have her back on again with an update and more words of wisdom and inspiration. And thank you everybody for watching. And I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Have a great day.